Introduced in internet parlance about 10 years ago by Scott Alexander, the nonsensical fallacy refers to a kind of faulty line of argumentation that goes like this. X is in a category whose archetypal member gives us a certain emotional reaction. Therefore, we should apply that same emotional reaction to X, even though it is not a central category member. If that sounded like some gibberish, here is an example. If someone said with scorn, Martin Luther King was a criminal, he is technically correct, since King knowingly broke a law against peaceful anti-segregation protests. But is Martin Luther King really the archetypal criminal? Although Martin Luther King technically is a criminal, he is a very non-central member of a criminal category, whose archetypal members are more akin to greedy mobsters who prey on the innocent. So saying Martin Luther King was a criminal commits the non-central fallacy, because it is implicitly asking us to treat Martin Luther King as some kind of greedy mobster, while he was a very, very different member of a criminal category. Okay, so now that we have a grip on what the non-central fallacy is, should we accept this newly created fallacy as a subcategory of the fallacy category? Some say the non-central fallacy is really a form of equivocation, a type of fallacy that already exists. That is when, in the same argument, you use a word with two different meanings. Others say that the non-central fallacy is a form of poisoning the well, and that's another type of fallacy that already exists. But it certainly seems that the non-central fallacy is more precise in describing certain kinds of argument that pop up in practice. There is, though, perhaps a kind of challenge the non-central fallacy has to meet. Say someone said that Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, was a criminal. Then we could retort, you have just made a non-central fallacy. In fact, although the Wolf of Wall Street was greedy and did prey on the innocent, he wasn't really using physical violence. And the archetypal criminal would probably be more at ease with the use of physical violence than the Wolf of Wall Street was. So technically, saying that the Wolf of Wall Street was a criminal commits the non-central fallacy, because the Wolf of Wall Street is somewhat different than the archetypal criminal, even though the original implicit argument didn't seem that bad on its face. But it goes deeper than that. When we say to the guy who said the Wolf of Wall Street was a criminal, you committed the non-central fallacy, aren't we also skirting the line of having just committed the non-central fallacy ourselves? After all, the archetypal non-central fallacy is probably more like the Martin Luther King example than this Wolf of Wall Street one. So, by saying you made a non-central fallacy, it appears like we are implying that the Wolf of Wall Street argument is more egregiously fallacious than it actually is. So maybe we shouldn't be saying you made a non-central fallacy in the first place. It gets worse. If any deviation from a non-central category member constitutes ground for a non-central fallacy, can we ever really say, you made a non-central fallacy, with 100% certainty that we didn't just commit a non-central fallacy ourselves? In other words, does the non-central fallacy commit the non-central fallacy? Of course, the problem being teased lies in what constitutes a central category member, and how you measure variation between members. These are problems that don't appear straightforward to solve, but maybe they can be ironed out in a conversation. Since I learned about the non-central fallacy, I use the nomenclature because it seems quite fitting, and so I think I'll keep on using it. Oh, by the way, philosophers might know the non-central fallacy as the fallacy of accident, and that's all, I guess. I hope somebody might find this amusing. Somebody is just ringing the bell. Oh, fuck.